like to call tonight's meeting to order. If you can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the republic. Before you take your seats, if we can just observe a moment of silence in the memory of Kennett Square police officers, William Davis and Richard Posey, who, as we all know, were slain 51 years ago on November 15th, 1972. So if we can just take a moment of silence and keep their memories with us and just remember that day that left an indelible mark on Kennett Square. Council, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion made.
Is there a second? Second. Any council discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Agenda is approved, and I didn't call roll call. Durfler, here. Sprick? Here. Kakamo? Borough? Herber?
Here.
Norris?
Present.
Zavala?
Here.
We'll move on to public comments, and for public comments, please come to the podium since we are speaking or transmitting on Zoom. Complete your comments within 3 minutes, present your spirits in the spirit of cooperation and collaboration, and be respectful to the institution of Borough Council in your words, tone, and gestures.
Carla Watson, 523 Magnolia Street in Kennett Square. I understand there was some information, I got a phone call rather, that there was some, an article in the paper about a council member that had a lot to say about our our budget for this year. I'm mighty amazed that you had enough to say to the Daily Local News, but you haven't been able to say it to us. Anything you, excuse me, is the mic on? Is the mic on? Because I also got a call the last meeting, it wasn't on. And that they text.
You have to speak into the mic.
It doesn't matter. I got a pretty loud voice. If it's on, it should have worked. It went off the last meeting.
You have
The
to
people
speak
who
into
called me up are not crazy. They couldn't hear the meeting. So let's get that straight. The things you people are doing is just out of control. And those of you who don't know how to think for yourself shouldn't be in here, because you're not making good decisions. And maybe you do need to leave. Because when you say you want another tax hike, and you just put one down last year, and you can talk to a newspaper, but you can't talk to your public to give them a chance to hear and make comments on what's being presented. And when you can't objectively or academically present it, we got a problem. We just don't put couple things up on the board and skip that, what the budget was in the previous year, the current year, and the next year, 2024. We also just see the breakdown as far as the police department, public works, secretarial staff, administration. We should also see the retirement packages and the salaries. So far, what I can see, you hired a bunch of people to run 1 square mile. And I don't know what other trick you got up your sleeve to bring more people in here, because we don't need them. If you need a CPA, we got a problem. If you need a borough manager and a CPA. If you need somebody, I don't know what the second person's for. They were never introduced to us. It was never announced they were going to be hired. And then they were here. How do I know that? Because I walked up and asked them, who are you? Definitely. So you're hiring people without coming to the Borough Council, where everything's supposed to be presented, from the smallest things of safety to the biggest things if you have a main break. The amount of money that's being spent on each thing. We heard that we have an equal amount of tax dollars that we accrue every year from the citizens, and that much more as a grant. I don't believe it. Because if you got that grant money, you're spending it in the same hole. Yet none of you can go down there and see that big apartment building, them men shouldn't have been working at 11:30 at night the other night or 12:30 and have the middle of State Street blocked off. They shouldn't have a pile of gravel over a month or more in the right-hand lane on Washington going north. So when you got to go up that road to go on West Baltimore Pike, you run the risk because you're in the other lane to get hit. We should not go down. So you want to make decisions and you want to say we need money. We don't need money for this building also. It should be sold. Should have been sold. And I hate to go over the place, but I got to get my asthma together because the bottom line, you got a sign on State Street about those apartments and a cone in the lane we're supposed to ride in. An advertisement. It needs to be gone. You need to get down there and start supervising that. You're supposed to know so much about infrastructure, which I think is a cuss word, because it's a word every politician uses just to do anything they want to do, and they never do nothing constructive with the money that they've gotten it under that Title IV. But somebody needs to get down there and supervise that construction site because it's just running loose with you. When equipment is closing the street at 12:30 at night, went out at 10:30, come back at 11:30, looked at it at 12:30. One day it's this lane, the next day it's another lane, and one day it's no arrow, but there's cones, so you don't know where you're going to be driving. That's a hazard. As far as the streets, you did a little bit of work that you're supposed to do, so nobody gets patted on the back. But also the fact is down there where the mayor said that people need to park on different sides that live on D Street below Washington. That's more of a hazard than those emergency vehicles that need to get in there that only come maybe once and for whatever. Because now when you go to make that turn there on the right, the cars are right there. The opening out of the creamery is right there. And the Mill Road people coming on D Street are right there to hit you. All those cars should be on one side of the street and next to their homes. They paid for that, and that's what should be there, and for the safety of the citizens, it should be there. That creamery should adjust its own entrance for the emergency vehicles, not no private citizens. And it's just too much you're doing haphazard. There's too much you're doing that doesn't follow our rules. You're not even following our ordinances. Of course, we don't have any officers, do we, to enforce it? Do we have any officers left? I don't think so for codes. I don't think so. So we got developers and we got realtors running amok in Kennet. And if you put that tax due today, it's only to advance your ideals, not what the citizens want. And citizens, if you have enough sense, you'll go to that voting place and vote against people in the future. You might not have a chance this year because somebody got their good old boy buddy coming in, but you'll do that. And I was asked once in closing that I assume you got the wrong woman. I'm intelligent. I can outsmart you, and I can always hire a lawyer, which I have one.
Thank you, Ms. Watson.
Hi, everybody. Sandy D'Antonio, 220 North Broad Street. I'm going to be brief. I missed last month's meeting, and I just want to say I hope that the mushroom drop will stay in town this year. And there was an article in the USA Today that said, congratulations, Mushroom Drop has been nominated for our 2023 10 Best Reader's Choice Travel Awards. And I'm not going to go on any further. And we thank Kathy Lafferty for getting that started.
Thank you, Ms. D'Antonio.
And then one other quick thing.
Oh, sorry.
I'm done after this. I know our taxes are going to be increased. I'm not asking any questions about that, but I'm hoping there is a payment plan for people who can't afford all that money at one time, because last year or whenever it was too late. That's it. Thank you for your time.
Any other public comment? There being none, we'll get to the reports. President's report. I do not have a report this evening, so I will go to the Borough Manager.
Sure. Just quickly, a thank you to our public safety, police, fire and EMS and public works staff for working all the events. We've had quite a few. It's what makes the town really exciting this time of the year. So I appreciate them working that. And then as far as the staffing and budget, just to clarify, the borough does not have a CPA, but we obviously get audited every year and we have fewer staff than we had 2 years ago. So we are holding costs in line. We don't, take taxing lightly. So we're happy to connect with anyone to talk through anything, any questions that you have. Thank you.
Anything for Kyle? Anything from the solicitor's office?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Police Department, Chief.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I did submit a a monthly report to you. I don't have anything really to add to that, with the exception of a couple things I just would like to mention. We did receive a citation from our Honorable Representative Christina Sappi back on October 11th for our involvement in the Cavalcante manhunt. It was really, really incredible that Christina went out to all of the police departments involved and personally thanked them. So we really appreciated that. Just an update also on our Bluebeards for Charity event. KSPD members have raised approximately $1,060 in donations, which will be split between Unite for Her, the Sambuco Children's Education Fund, A Child's Light, and the Chester County Crime Victim Center. And last thing is just to thank you, President Dorfler, for the recognition for Posey and Davis. The 51-year anniversary is coming up next week, and we will be holding our memorial event out at the grave sites a day prior to the actual date. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Chief. Any questions from council for the chief? Anything from the Regional Fire Commission? Thanks so much, Chief. What was that? Thank you, Chief.
So just, it doesn't come through Zoom if we don't do it on the mic. So what the chief said was the monthly fire meeting is next week at 5 p.m. at the Pennsbury Township Building, just so it's on there.
Moving to committees, I'll start with personnel. I'm in the process of consolidating the reviews I've gotten for Kyle in preparation for the new contract. Council, if you have not gotten the reviews in, please do so in the next couple days. That would be very much appreciated, just so we have perspective from everybody. Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance Committee met on October 12th. We reviewed the invoices and all of our questions were answered. We're generally very much on target, no major concerns in terms of hitting our budgets for this year, both in revenue and expenses. Third quarter sewer bill was sent to Kennett for their agreement. Capital projects, as someone noted, is really coming on strong. Huge thanks to the Public Works Group for all the great work they've been doing. And the Aqua agreement that we now have with New Garden or Aqua is starting to generate revenue where we did not have it before. And all of our fire and EMS bills and nonprofit donations have been made for the year as well. Primary job at the last Finance Committee meeting was reviewing the budget for 2024 and tweaking it to make sure that we're on target, taking into account all the expenses and revenue from this year as well. The next meeting is November 16th at 3 p.m. You're more than welcome to join us. We did have a public session for those that were interested and available prior to this meeting. I think everyone knew to review the budget on a light item basis. So that happened. Turnout was not really good, but you're certainly welcome to ask Nick or Kyle. Best way to reach anyone is through help@kennettsq.org. Stop into the building or call our main line. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. North. Anything for Finance Committee? Ms. Zavala, anything from Human Relations? All right, thank you. All right, that is the end of the committee reports. We'll get into the discussion items, and we've got a number of special events. Mr. Mayor, did you want to give a little recap of all the items first that have gone through public safety, and then we can take each one as discussion items?
Sure. We asked that the different entities that request submit special event applications throughout the year to start submitting them earlier so we could have a more comprehensive calendar throughout the year. So we have a way of deploying staff and services and being able to plan ahead. And we really appreciate that most of those entities have gotten a lot of the things in for next year. So that's what we're kind of facing tonight is we've got several of them to go through. We did review them at public safety. They're reviewed by the fire department as well as the EMS division, public works, the police department, and then finally public safety. So we've got comments for all of them. You want me to go down each one?
Take each one.
Okay,
Thanks.
sure. So
All right. Oh, go ahead.
do you want me to just go through them or do you want to go?
Go ahead.
Okay, the first.
Where's yours?
Well, it'll just make, we might be able to get through them a little faster. The first one is the Midnight in the Square. This is the annual mushroom drop, better known as the mushroom drop, on December 31st on New Year's Eve. The application was submitted and it really parallels last year's. There were really no changes from last year's application. There was some discussion amongst the Public Safety Committee. So we did not make a recommendation to council on whether this should be approved or not. We wanted the whole application and the conversation to happen here at council tonight. There was a conversation and some recommendations that potentially having the mushroom drop down here in the 600 South Broad Street location provided a better safety and security area because it's fully fenced. It allows for better security, especially for an event like that. And the chief shared his perspective on why there might be benefits to doing that. It is hard to manage a large crowd, and with the different types of threats that are apparent for today, that was a conversation point. There is no recommendation to move the mushroom festival or the mushroom drop for this year. It is a conversation about what does it look like in the future. Additionally, the chief brought up and Public Works brought up that the way it currently works is that everybody in the police department, almost 100%, other than maybe 2 or 3 officers, plus all of our Public Works department are required to, it takes everybody to make the event work. And there is some concern about how that is for morale and longevity when you know for the rest of your career, you're going to have to work on New Year's Eve, right? So that is a concern, right? When we have to be sensitive to that every single year hang on one second, I'm going to share the comments and then we'll go through it. That is a concern. As you know, it is a challenge to recruit police officers. And when you tell them that you're going to have to work every New Year's Eve for the rest of your career, that's a consideration. The council needs to consider that. It's the same thing with Public Works, that the entire crew has to work on New Year's Eve in order to make that event possible. So there's no recommendation to make the change for this year, but it was important that those concerns be shared. Additionally, not only is it the mushroom drop, but it also takes folks on the holiday at Thanksgiving for the holiday light parade. So we're asking our police department and our Public Works to give up their holidays throughout the fall and work. And there is no light at the end of the tunnel of, oh, in 4 years, I don't have to work that. It's every year. So it's important that we got that message out and that council have that consideration. And we look at what those alternatives, if there might be in the future, there may not. But for 2023, there is no recommendation to change anything other than have a discussion for council tonight.
Kathy, Lafferty, did you want to speak to the event application at all? So I just want, before we get, so since this is typically, we'll do the time for public comment at the beginning of the meeting and we don't do it bit by bit. But since it seems like those that wanted to speak waited, feel free. So but if you can come up to the podium though, and speak, that would be great. And again, we're not changing it for this year. That's not the recommendation.
Hi, my name's Rob Masetic at 202 North Washington Street. My only question is, what difference does it make whether it's down here or in town? What difference would that make with the force that has to work that night?
It cuts it in half.
It cuts the force in half.
Yes, it cuts the amount of staff in half.
What about the restaurants and businesses that count on New Year's Eve as a big night for them?
So I think so just as, I'm just going to fill you in on what the conversation was. The conversation was that we couldn't see that the restaurants would still be busy, right? They were busy before the mushroom drop. They would be continuing to be busy whether the mushroom drop happened or not, right? It's a New Year's Eve event.
Right.
And
but
most
they're
people
even more
don't come
busy.
outside until it's time for the mushroom drop, right? Until a couple of hours before. So that is all part of the consideration. So no one's saying that there's not a consideration, but we have to hear all sides of the story, right? And so that's what we're
I
doing.
understand that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Michaels.
Lee Michaels, an owner of a Grain Craft Bar Kitchen, 108 West State. I fully appreciate the challenges that are involved with staffing an event like this and understand it. And I would just like to propose or just offer the positives. First off, from a business perspective, it's tough to separate what was your business that night versus the others, but I looked at it, particularly if it's weekend, but it's about a 25% lift on businesses on State Street, or our business, at least is what I know. But I'd really like to highlight, like, it's one of those things that makes Kennett. And I continue to hear from people that they come to Kennett because of the charm of the downtown. And if you look at other towns like Media, Westchester, and Phoenixville, which I consider in our decision set of towns that are similar in interest and have that charm and trying to draw people downtown, they've found ways to do this. They've seen the benefits of it. Media has their fall festival. Westchester has their World Music Day and the Chester County Restaurant and Food Truck Festival. And Phoenixville has their Summer Fest. And while I've not been to it, I now want to, the Blob Fest. These are events that like are signature events for that town. And I'd hate to move something that is a signature event for Kennett Square to a parking lot. And I would love for all of us to put our heads together and say, how can we solve this challenge? I totally get what you're saying. Being in the restaurant industry, to tell a kitchen person that, look, for the rest of your future, every Friday and Saturday night, you're going to be eating over a garbage can or, working. That's a challenge. And I get that. And I'd love to try to find ways to solve that together. But I do want to say that this is an important event for our town in terms of adding the character to it that makes it a different town than most others. And I hope that we can find a way to keep it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, I apologize. I didn't share the fire perspective that you shared of the public safety.
I'm not here as the fire chief, AJ McCarthy, 700 Center Street. I'm not opposed to the mushroom drop, but this is what I will say, just listening. Your town's changed, right? But when I was a kid here, the only thing we had was a mushroom festival. That was it. We have a Memorial Day parade that came after the mushroom festival, but everything you have now is you have events all the time. Listening to everybody and tell you how they like the town, how people want to come here. The thing that hasn't changed since I was a kid was the size of your police department. So if you want, and if everybody wants these events to happen like they're happening, it's the same thing I'm going through on my side. You have to increase your police department. It's very simple. And I'm going to speak from my own personal experience. I worked at Westchester for 14 years. Mayor Fettig worked in the same town. We had tons of events. I worked in a 50-man department. So if I had to work that New Year's Eve, I knew I wasn't working the next one. You have 14 guys, right? Roughly. That's not enough. So if you want to continue to expand what we're doing in this town, you're going to have to raise the taxes. You're going to have to expand your police department. You're going to have enough staff where you're handling the normal workload and you're covering all these events. I'll be honest with you. When I was the low man on the totem pole in Westchester, I got stuck working a ton of stuff that nobody else wanted to work. Right? I mean, you're it, kid. You 5-6 years. Guys will leave. That's the problem. When they're not going to get downtime and they're going to get stuck working Thanksgiving and Christmas and then New Year's, eventually they'll find somewhere else. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but you're going through turnover, right? I mean, that stuff happens. They'll go somewhere where there's a 50-man department. I worked 12 Christmases in a row, even when I had little kids, because I was the junior guy. But as a council, if you're going to entertain, and believe me, I'm not saying get rid of these events. I do like the events in town. That's the reason why I moved back into town. You got to explain your police department. You can't expect to do triple the work with the same force that you had when I was a kid inside the police station on Broad Street. It's not going to happen. Thank you.
Chief, can I put you on the spot just for a little bit as far as the fire and EMS perspective of
Sure.
if it's in town or uptown or
Sure.
down here?
So the one thing that, this would probably be more of a conversation for in the future, I want to know how many people go to it. Cause I think, I think we're starting to dance on the line where you're probably getting close to the mandated requirement to have EMS coverage there. Frankly speaking, it doesn't matter what event's uptown. I'm not a fan of closing State Street in that block. It's a pain trying to get around town. I don't like when Third Thursday closes it. I understand what it does for the restaurants, but I'm looking at it through my lens. It's extremely difficult to navigate town. You have one incident in one area. So last week or 2 weeks ago, we had a crash on Broad Street where we had to shut Broad Street down. And I mean, Mr. Norris was there, but like it brought town to a screeching halt. Nobody was going anywhere. These are manageable things, but people are going to have to understand you're going to sit in traffic for 20 minutes while we do what we need to do, or we're going to have enough resources where we can have these things on site and handle them. And I think the problem that comes with that is it comes with a cost. We haven't started paying for fire trucks and ambulances of these things yet, but I can promise you they're going to be more expensive than the police department or public works. Our vehicles are more expensive. It's just more expensive. We work hand in hand with the police department. So when you have your event uptown, if something does go, we communicate pretty regularly. So I'm not concerned with that. But I think as it starts to get popular, you're going to start getting to the point where you're not going to have a choice whether some of these things have to be standing by. And that just takes it into the next conversation when people don't want to pay for it. And, we don't operate at a fully funded budget, so I can't donate services to everybody. I don't know if that's the best way I can explain it to you, but I think it's definitely a conversation that we need to dig further into, not just the mushroom drop, but a lot of them.
Thank you.
Darrell Watson, 523 Magnolia Street in Kennett Square. I don't agree with that at all. When Albert McCarthy was chief, he only had 7 officers. Mrs. Watson told the council he needs more men. We got up to about 11, 10, 11, or 12. And that's with part-time. We're only 1 square mile. We haven't changed, and we can't build a bigger police department to facilitate somebody's social needs. Increasing the police department is based on criminal needs. It's not built on pleasure. We can't do that. So you better find another way. And not having it uptown, to me, I really don't have an opinion about that, but what I can see objectively, where's the people going to park down here? You got them big garages you wanted us to build. We still got a debt running them bonds for it. They can park uptown with more ease. And people like it up there because they can congregate in different spaces. And when you put it down here, you're going to be blocking off a certain amount of area to use for the mushroom just to drop. And everybody's not going to be able to see it. Then you're going to try to ask the school, can we use your lawn? Let's see what they say about liability. And the number of people has already gotten too big. First off, we have too many venues here. We don't want to be known as a party town. Too much. What you need to do is find another avenue for that, but we don't need increase in our police department. If he tells me he's had 10 murders, he's had rapes, he's had somebody running up and down the alley nude or grabbing women, if he tells me there's white collar crime, that's when we increase the police department. Now let's be objective about this. Let's be objective. Because we've already gotten out of hand with all these social things. The beer fest you can have in here, you need to corral them. You never heard me say a thing about them people. I didn't say what they did when they come or they go. I've never had an opinion. Any festivity you've had. It's gotten too big. Maybe you need to limit it. We're only 1 square mile. Think about it.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. Council discussion on this item. We haven't even chatted about this yet. So, and remember the recommendation. So what's before us is for this coming
midnight in the square, and there's no recommendation to move it for this year. So we'll have the continuing discussion, I think, is what it looks like in years future, but discussion for this item before us tonight.
I think we have to come up with a win-win. It belongs on State Street. There's no question in my mind. I spoke to a number of folks, which are here, some are not. So I'm glad it's not a question for this year. I'd like to make sure it is next year, but I also didn't realize the impact, the negative impact it has on your two departments. I'm shocked to hear that, frankly. So how do we come up with a win-win? How do we either hire part-time folks or security officers or something so that you don't have to miss times that most of our families get to enjoy with our loved ones as well? Thank you.
Anything else from council tonight?
What, I personally agree. I think it should stay up on State Street. I think, it's like, you're gonna go to New York City, you want to see the time fall in Madison Square Garden. You don't want to go to like someplace else. Have we ever thought about talking to regional areas and see if they can bring in some officers? Maybe do like a rotating schedule on our end where that the first year somebody work and maybe the second year, the other half of them would do it. Maybe we'll grab some other officers from an area in town, because I'm sure that it's not just Cannon Borough people that are coming to the mushroom drop. So look at it wider and see if we can grab some other townships or some other areas and share that cost. That's an idea.
We'll continue that conversation, I think, at public safety, but just so you know, we have talked about that. But there is a police staffing crisis in Chester County, and everyone's running on thin margins. And we have talked about, could we just open it up to anybody through mutual aid and let other officers come in and do it? And, we're lucky at the moment where our chief happens to be the chief of the Chester County Chiefs Association. He's got the relationships and he's got the pulse on it. And we know at the moment that borrowing, whether even paying a premium, is rarely an option, because most departments are understaffed and trying to meet their own requirements. So the chief and I have had this conversation. If you want to add to it, that feel free. But it's a challenge right now. If we lose one more person right now, it's going to take us nearly a year at fastest to try to replace that person. The police academy that we rely on didn't have enough applicants to run 2 full classes this year. So, until we start getting more people into the academy and getting people coming up, it's a challenge. But every department's got openings.
Yeah, no, 100% agree, Mayor. And this is really ultimately what I hoped we would do. We would have a more robust discussion about the impacts, and I don't think a lot of times we think about some of the negatives that go along with the positives. And I can appreciate, Lee, the challenges, with a business and how it does bolster business on that night. Just wanted to have an engaged conversation so everybody kind of gets on the same page as to where we are. And let's be honest, it's a crazy world that we currently live in. These are the things that keep me up at nighttime. How do we continue to hold events like this, and we can do it and ensure the safety of everybody? As somebody had mentioned, the first year that this took place, it was national news. What I want to avoid is being national news because something horrible took place at one of our events. That's my ultimate concern. And the impact that it takes on staff. Our public works department, they're supposed to be on vacation. I'm sorry, not vacation, on a holiday. Our police officers are supposed to be on a holiday as well. It becomes very challenging with staffing. And for example, this year falls on a Sunday. So we don't even have as many officers available because our rotations change from Sunday to Monday. So we have officers that are in on a day shift on Monday morning that are unavailable to work the event. So it really stretches us thin, and when you think about other things that come into place, we have an officer who's been out for a few months now with shoulder surgery from a work-related injury. All these little things kind of, take a toll on us. And again, I'm not saying that I was ever against the mushroom, drop. Not at all. I just want to make sure that we all had a very engaged conversation and we can think about potentially better ways to move forward.
Can I suggest, can we do that now? Can we have that dialogue at the Public Safety Committee, probably include Karma and anyone from Kennett Collaborative that wants to do that? So we're not waiting till next year.
And we actually have already begun that, talking with Daniel, we're trying to get all of our events a lot earlier in the year so we can know what the impacts on staffing would be. So yeah, those discussions really are starting to already move forward.
I certainly hear the concerns, obviously, that puts the pressure on the police department. One of the things that I wonder, if we were to move it down to here, South Broad in the future, it feels to me like that has the potential of just simply increasing the footprint of the event space, because obviously we'll still have people, a large crowd up at downtown and State Street, and eventually they'll start moving to gather down here. And it just seems like the potential to even further increase the need for, perimeter or something like that. And that mass of people essentially walking through neighborhoods to get down here and along South Broad and South Union. On the other hand, I could almost see something like moving the mushroom drop down here might be a benefit once we have Birch Street revitalized, and to almost use that as an event that connects downtown to Birch Street, like I keep hearing, has been a goal for a while now.
So more discussion to happen. As far as this application, just, I wanted to be clear, any objection from council to moving this year's mushroom drop to consent? Thank you for all your input. All right, Holiday Light Parade.
This is the only difference this year is that it was moved from Friday to Saturday. And really the parade route's the same. The application is really the same, except it's moved to Saturday night. So for those of you that are used to seeing it on Friday night, look for it on Saturday night this year. Well, there are lots of good reasons for doing that. So thanks to kind of Collaborative for facilitating that. One is it does help try to support Small Business Saturday. Maybe folks will come and spend more time shopping or dining prior to the event, and it'll be nice to see how it all rolls into one, culminating with the parade that night. So no changes on that one.
And Daniel, did you want to add anything? Or
Daniel Embry from Kennett Collaborative. Just want to add that that decision to move from Friday to Saturday is the kind of decision-making that I think can support everything we've just been talking about with the mushroom drop. So I'd like to be a kind of part of the conversation of finding solutions for these things and looking at them as a whole, and finding which events can we, make changes to in terms of where they are or when they are, to ease the burden on the borough as a whole.
excellent. Anything from council?
The only one thing I just wanted to add, and this doesn't change anything, the parade route will be the same as last year. It's just that the application only lists a street closure of State Street to Willow to Mill. It will actually close all of South Broad Street in between South Street and State Street, as well as the side streets on West State Street. So Center Street, Meredith, Lafayette, Lincoln. Just wanted to make that clear, but it's the same thing we did last year.
Okay. Any discussion from council? Any objection to moving to consent? All right. Clover Market.
The next two are really easy. These are the application for Clover Market on June 2nd and October 20th. They both take place down here, 600 South Broad. Exact same thing as this year. So no changes to those and no need for anything additional than the use of the lot here.
Discussion from council.
Do we have any provisions, or has anyone considered the impact of the police department construction? And I mean, because this building, this property does get used for an awful lot. So can we be careful about where the construction is and at the same time make sure organizations know that they may not have 100% use? Or
The chief pointed that out in public safety, that they may have to tailor where they set up their booths.
okay. And likewise, we can also ask the contractor, which we may assign tonight, to please make sure they're as tight as they can to certain areas or move their equipment before the events and so forth. Great. Thank you.
Anything to add, Daniel? Or are you just waiting for questions?
I would. Yes to everything.
Okay.
That was great. I'll just emphasize the flexibility with notice of what's happening in the parking lot. We can be very flexible. So let's just keep the communication on that open.
Great. Anything else from council? Going to move that one to consent as well. And an arts festival.
This is the same thing that was approved for this year. This year it was rained out, so it wasn't held. 9:20 to 9:22. So it's a Friday evening setup, all day Saturday and Sunday, and it's also at 600 South Broad. It doesn't require any street closures or anything like that.
Same as previous years. Anything from?
Just clerical, there, the dates actually show as 23. That should be 24, right? On the application?
Yes.
That's a consent. Kennett Flash Summer Rooftop Concert Series.
I don't know if is anybody here from the Flash to go over it? Okay, so the Flash is requesting the same opportunity to have concerts on the rooftop, the same way that they did this year with the noise control, everything else that they had on there. This year they had the opportunity to do 17 concerts is what was authorized by council, subject to noise control and those types of things. They only ended up holding 4 or 5 because they either rained out or moved the inside for whatever reason. So out of the 17 that were approved, 4 or 5 total, I believe, were held outside. We did not receive any complaints. I don't think we had any, right? Is there anything that we need to know? At the time, I don't believe that there were any issues, right? Okay. So I think we hit what the residents asked for as far as noise control and things like that. The police department received no complaints at all. There were no issues, no arrests, no problems at all. So they're asking for basically the exact same opportunity they had this year. No more than 17, most focused on Saturday evenings. Quiet time absolutely starts at 9 o'clock. So no noise after 9 p.m. And it's from 6 to 9. With the occasional sound check at 5:30, but music from 6 to 9 is the window that they're permitted.
Anything from council?
I have one question. It says they were requesting 6 QR codes. I assume that's for access to the garage. So is that, I mean, just so they know and we know, are those paid passes or are those non-paid passes?
They were paid this year.
Doesn't say, just so we're clear with them and vice versa. Thank you.
Any objections to consent?
We'll clean up the typo
Okay.
there.
All right. And then last one, Mushroom Festival.
So Gina's here, I believe, aren't you, Gina? Did I not hear Gina? Gina's not here. It's the exact same application from this year. So the 6th through the 8th, no changes as far as road closures or anything like that.
Anything from council?
Can we move that to here?
Okay,
You
I'm
know
just,
what?
That's all.
we did ask and Gina said she would consider.
Stopped myself purposely from not saying that and Bob did it. Any objection to moving that to consent, council? All right. That's a lot of special events, Mr. Mayor.
I didn't see it make the agenda, so we may need to add it for Wednesday, although I'm not sure. So I'm not sure the council needs to authorize this or not authorize it. However, the Kennett Collaborative has requested the opportunity. Council put together a price that if anybody wants to sponsor the garage for parking, because now the garage is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for parking, we came up with a flat fee to open the parking garage for events. Kennett Collaborative has asked for 2 opportunities on the first 2 Sundays in December to pay for parking in the parking garage. Do we? And the 25th of November, so which is the parade. So does council, if somebody's going to pay for it, is that an administrative issue? Does council, so it came to public safety, but can that be, if somebody just walks in and says, we want to pay for this, does council need to take an action? You need to vote on that? Does council want to be just informed, or does council want to vote on those types of things? So ultimately, what's happening is they're paying the flat fee the council is authorized for the garage for a day.
Yeah, so there would be
So
no
we've
council action
authorized
that
the
would be
fee.
needed.
We've already authorized the fee. We have a set fee. What's the procedure for, for giving approval to that?
At that point, it'd be administrative. It's someone coming in and paying it because you've already set the fee. Someone could theoretically do it for every day of the year. But you've already set the fee, so there's no council action.
Okay, if it's not required, does council want to just be notified as from the minutes from public safety? Do you want to see it vetted somewhere, or do you want it just going through Borough Hall? Because it came to us as a request through a special events permit. So I'm just wondering, what does council want to be notified? Do you care?
FYI, maybe?
Okay. Do you want it to come through public safety through our notes, or do you just want it to go through Borough Hall and just come as part of the borough manager's report or something? How do you want it managed?
I would imagine just going through Borough Hall would be.
That's
fine.
what I think.
Yeah.
We're fine to manage it and send out an update.
So there you go, Mr. Emery. So going forward, or anybody that wants to sponsor a parking garage, you can, maybe we'll just create a new little form for that and a way to pay for it, and that'll be it. Okay.
All right, give us one.
Yes.
All right.
That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, we are moving on to Public Works. Rob, I know you're raring to go, considering the approval of the bid award for the sewer pipe relining.
Yeah, I don't have the staff report over here with me, but basically through the borough, there's some sewer pipes that are in poor condition. And in order to restore them into a good operating condition, we put out a bid to have relining done on it. It's basically you're pulling through a fabric that's soaked in a resin, and then they use UV light to harden it. It's got a 50-year life on it and reestablishes the pipe. So it was put out to bid. The bid came in at $130,000, and dredging, what was it, Denise? Mobile dredging was the low bidder. So we're just asking for approval on that contract.
Any questions for Rob?
Have we used this technology in the borough before?
No.
You're confident, though, doing your research, that it's
Yeah, we checked it out, and we also got reports from engineers that life expectancy is 40 to 50 years on it.
the cost to do this has got to be a fraction of
Oh, yeah.
replacing?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting some of the mains are in really poor condition. Some of the mains don't even have tops in them. And they're going to be able to restore the main.
Give it a try.
So just to clarify for everyone, it's a pretty great set of research and innovation by our team. Instead of digging down into the earth and taking out an existing pipe and replacing it, they're running a line through the inside that spits itself the other way. So it's a pretty significant cost savings. So good job there.
Thanks.
Council discussion. I think this is a great opportunity. Any objections to moving to consent? All right. Thank you, Rob. You staying on for the Hessian Drive easement?
Yep.
All right.
404 Hessian Drive, going through that property is a sewer main and a storm easement. The storm easement exists. The sewer main easement was never recorded, even though we have our main going through there. In order for Irwin, a property on Irwin to tie in, I asked that we get an easement and have it recorded. The property owner agreed, and the easement is there for your consideration.
Any questions from council? Discussion? All right. Move this to consent. Consider the approval of the PADEP consent agreement.
This comes into play because in past practice, when we would have to put out a boiled water notice, we would contact our sanitarian and inform him of it. The sanitarian was on vacation and but didn't notify us and didn't have it on their on their voicemail. So when our guys called, they left a message that we were going to have to put on boil water notice. DEP came back and said that because he was on vacation, it didn't count and we didn't give him the 24-hour notice. So, and they said that we should have contacted the 24-hour hotline. So the original fine was $6,000. We appealed it with Mike Crotty's help, and it was reduced down to $3,000. Since then, we've updated our SOPs and also put cards in the trucks to specify that the 24-hour notice would have to be given to the emergency hotline.
It looked like in reading through this that every single thing was done correctly as it should have, with the exception of that one leaving the voicemail.
Yeah, and it was actually done the way we've
Yeah.
done it numerous times. But this one time was an issue.
Questions, discussion from council?
Who's our point person?
Nate Elder.
My main concern would be just that we've, like you said, updated the SOPs to tighten up the screws of the process and make sure that we're not beginning. It sounds like they are very nice.
Yep.
Any objection to consent? All right. Thank you, Rob. All right, moving on.
Rob.
Oh, sorry.
Rob, you want to stay up for the next one? Sorry, Doug.
That's okay. I'm just reading what's on my notes, Rob.
I'll step aside for
So this is financing for the new police station?
So Rob, this is a few items here. So Rob, could you give us some background on the bid process for the police station and where we've ended up today? And we'll get into some of the financing of it. I think it's best to work it through that way.
Right. The way we did bidding was, it was actually done through Penvest, which is an online through the state. Basically, once we have the scope of the work and the specifications done, all the plans are done, it goes on Penvest. We send out an advertisement, actually send out 2 advertisements, and there's time periods that you have to follow on that. The first one has to be put out, and then within 3 days, the second one goes out, and then we start accepting bids, and we also have all the plans out online for all the contractors to see. Then we gave them 30 days to put the bid in. Once it goes, and nice thing about PennBid is once that 30 days was up, PennBid automatically opens up and they calculate as to who the lowest bidder is. And that's where we're at with it.
Thanks, Rob. And just to clarify, this is the effort to renovate a portion of this building to be our new police station. We're doing that so that it becomes an accredited station, which is good for our operations, and it also avails us of more grant opportunities. So this funding for this project is $2 million from a state grant that we received, some money from ARPA, which was the federal stimulus dollars from a few years ago, sale of our previous municipal building, and remaining funds from this building that were part of the bond that were set aside to renovate the building, and then using the sale of our current police station to cover some contingency, if there are cost overruns, which often happen on a project of this size. And we have here our team that covers both legal and financing side to talk through what these options are, what the rates are, to kind of walk everyone through that.
Good.
All right.
We're good.
Brian Bradley from RBC Capital Markets. I know I've spoken quite a bit with Kyle and Nick. We met with the finance committee, at one point as well. If you recall, in August, we RFP'd this out to a multitude of banks. It went out to about 20 banks. We got a handful of responses, and the best provider that availed themselves of the opportunity was DelVal, the Delaware Valley Regional Finance Authority. Obviously, that was back in August. Rates have changed since then, as you're fully aware. When we send around the bids, the rate that came in was about a 3.7. The current rate is a 3.89 as of yesterday. The one benefit of going with DelVal, just adding to Kyle's point here, of the total project costs, the financing is going to be about for 60% of the police station and Birch Street in aggregate. It's about 60% that you're going out for financing for, and that's really, at the end of the day, interim financing. The 40% is being covered with funds on hand, bond proceeds, sale of building, ARPA funds. The balance of the loan will be paid for with the grants as they come in. So really, the financing vehicle that you're looking for is a short-term interim financing vehicle. We're amortizing it over 15 years, but the most important aspect of that loan is it's prepayable at any time. So as the grants come in, the loans will be prepaid and no more interest costs will be incurred. Nick had handed out an update of what the financing looks like. I know you've seen this quite a bit. I'd be more than happy to go over it in detail or however you want me to proceed. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going.
Sorry about that.
If you can give a little overview, just I think it would be helpful for the public as well, as far as just what we're looking at here. That would probably be a good idea.
Sure. So for the handout you have, I've broken it up into 3 different pieces. The reason why it's broken up into 3 different notes is because the grants are expected to come in at different intervals. And we want to match our loan with that sub loan with the respective grant and our best guess with respect to timing so that we can pay it off immediately. So in aggregate, it's about $5.9 million in projects. After financing costs, we're looking at a loan of just under $6 million, $5,968,000. $3.6 million will come from loan proceeds. Again, it's an interim loan. The balance of those funds, approximately $2.4 million, will be paid off with cash on hand. We're looking at about a 3.9 interest rate in the current market. We're going to fix it for one piece. We're going to fix for 3 years. That's when we expect to get the RACP grant in. The other pieces are going to be locked in for 1 year. And based on current rates, you're looking at about a 3.89 amortized over 15 years. But it's expected that the loans will be paid off in 2 of them in 1 year and another one within 3 years.
Questions from council?
Just to clarify, I did talk about the police part. The other portion is the Birch Street effort. But again, it's similar to the police side. This is primarily funded through grants that we've received.
And just to add on that, I'm glad you brought that up. The reason why you're doing it obviously all together is you're saving on your fixed costs of issuance and your advertising and all those sort of fees. So it makes sense to combine them and do it together. More than happy to answer anything else. Timing?
We just need, as a council, we just need to recognize these are some pretty big numbers that we're throwing around here. Rob, Denise, the chief, and myself, during the budget workshop we had prior, we're kind of penciling the number, the real number, the total numbers, not just this $4.3 million contract or $3.9 million contract plus the contingency, but we're also looking at, things like the financing costs. I think we said, Nick, correct me, it's about $150,000. Furniture and fit out and so forth is another $150,000. Security equipment, we have a grant request for that. We haven't received that yet. That's another $40,000. So it's all in about $4.6 million to build out the police station. I think it's the right thing to do, but we just need to recognize it's a really big number. And also that this assumes, the payback assumes that we're taking the proceeds from the current police station and putting it right back in to pay for this, which I think is fine. We just need to recognize that in principle, we're sort of agreeing to do that. So we should get that going fairly soon. The construction will start, Rob, within a month or two tops. You know, it should be, I think you said, a 6-month build out. So by the middle of next year, give or take, the police station should be up and running. We should hopefully be closing on the sale of that building in a market which is not ideal either to sell real estate like that. But I think it's the right thing to do, just a lot of issues and complexity around it. Thank you.
Anything else from council? Any objections to moving the financing to consent? All right, seeing none. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Considering the resolution of the matching funds for the RACP grant for the new police station.
Mike, you want to?
Mike, somebody.
It's really just the resolution where we acknowledge that we are going to be using the matching funds for the 2 million from our bond proceeds. Something the county requires.
So items 13, A, B, and C are all intertwined.
Right. Anything from council? All right. I will move that to consent if there's no objection. Bid award package for the new police station.
Okay, the bids came in, and the lowest bidder was Bancroft Construction. In the amount of $3,918,000 or $18,618.75. They were the lowest bid. We also have a $30,000 for a ad item that we'd like to put on as an entranceway to the move the entranceway from the back corner over to the glass area with a new storefront. So it'll be more centered. So like I said before, we went through the bidding process, and Bancroft was the one who was a winning bidder. And Nick has the financing ready to go, and we're just waiting for approval of the contract so we can get moving.
Questions for Rob?
Rob, I just want to share that Rob had mentioned that Bancroft actually has worked on other police facilities in the past, so they've got the experience.
Yes.
Anything from council? All right. We'll move this to consent with no objection. Thank you, Rob. Yep. All right, consider approval of bid award for the removal of the furniture at 600 South Broad Street.
Thank you, Council President. This is a bid we put out, went through the process. This follows our brokerage team's recommendation that we remove the furniture from this building in order to make it more leasable. So we went through the process as we're required by Commonwealth law to do. We came back, or we're coming back here tonight with the low bid, the only bid of $95,900 to remove the cubicles from the space. We have had, thanks to Daniel Embry and Kenny Collaborative, we've had 5 organizations five nonprofits take furniture from here. They were mainly chairs. We had a total of 25 items. The cubicles are significant and they're expensive to remove. So the question here for council tonight is whether you want to authorize us to complete that bid, whether you want to try to do a portion of it, or if there's some other route to do that. Again, this is prompted by our brokerage team recommending this as the next step in leasing out the space. And for what it's worth, the contractor is here tonight to answer any questions you may have.
Did either one of you want to present any information before the Q&A?
Thank you for having us, and we appreciate your servitude to the community. I was a public servant for a long time, so I appreciate community members coming out. I'm the owner of J-Dog Junk Removal in Halling. We're a veteran-owned and operated local franchise. We do these types of removals all the time. As you know, due to COVID, spaces like this that are being closed, we do everything possible to try to recycle the material that we're removing. In this instance, there's, I believe, 96 cubicles. We visited the site on multiple occasions, counted every single item that we're removing. We're really in the logistics business. We know how long it takes to move the things. One thing that was concerning to me was the prevailing wage. Due to the size of the job, I'm not sure if we're able to work and break it up into compartments where we can kind of work around that. That would, I believe, save the Kennett Square Borough a lot of money. And also, we looked into office companies that would normally come through and remove the items. We would coordinate it. And there's just such an influx of cubicles. I mean, we've done 6 of these jobs this year alone. So unfortunately, large spaces like this, people are downsizing, as you know, companies moving in and out through transition. So.
Any questions?
Yeah, so just a note from legal, we are not permitted to cut it up in a way that would be perceived in any fashion as evading the prevailing wage requirements. We couldn't do that aspect.
So does this budget assume prevailing wage then?
It does.
It does.
Yes, sir.
This is an unbudgeted sort of surprise number that we really were not expecting or counted on. Where does this 100,000, 93,000, 95,000, 96,000 come from?
It would have to come from, I don't know, Nick, if you have a different opinion, but it would, you could either take it as going against rental income, or you could take it from surpluses or reserves and have rental income paid back over time. But, it's not budgeted.
When would you do it and how long would it take?
It would take, so these 3 segments reflect 4 employees working 8-hour days to disassemble and stage all of the cubicles. As you know, in this building, there's 1 elevator, which obviously we cannot use. It's not efficient. It would cost for us to go. We came and looked. So again, not to go off on a tangent, but it's each one for the first segment. You look at 64 hours. That's basically 4 guys for 2 days. The second segment is 4 guys for 4 days, and the third segment for employees for 4 days. So a total of 10 days to disassemble and stage all of the cubicles, chairs, filing cabinets, etc., to be moved out as efficiently as possible. There's a back hallway that we were going to fabricate a chute to slide the partitions down. We even looked at maybe hiring a company to come and remove a window. The problem with that is throwing all the items into a dumpster. It's not stacked. We're going to use less trucks. And in this, one of the things I discussed with Sonny is that if we finish, we have 10 days of labor of disassemble. If we finish it in 7, we'll take 3 days off. We'll keep very close eye on the trucks. We stack these trucks. We're trying to optimize our time here. Time is money, as you know. We have, I believe it's 55 truckloads between the cubicles and all of the filing cabinets. If we remove 40, we'll charge you for 40 and we'll pull that off. It's really not, we're not trying to, again, and like I said, we went, I believe 96 cubicles. There's 2 smaller filing cabinets under each one. There's 1 larger filing cabinet above. I believe there was 55 5-foot cabinets, square footage, moving in a truck. So we really did our homework on this. And unfortunately, I know this is a large number.
But again, it's unfortunate that we have to remove all
So
this.
when would you do it?
I believe this work needed to be completed before the first week of December.
Is there any consideration, Kyle, to seeing, I know we passed it out first to charities, and I also know that there wasn't a lot of good stuff. But if you walk around, there's a ton of file cabinets and some decent desks. Is there any consideration to opening up to residents? I know there's a liability issue, but
I just don't think that there's value
No.
to justify that. We had over a dozen nonprofit leaders in, they would be the ones most likely to be able to use this, and there just isn't value. So the request here today from staff is to make a decision one way or another on this bid. We can always not accept it and put the property on the market with furniture in it. That's an option. But we, each month that we don't make a decision, we lose rental income.
I think it's gonna show better when it's empty than it does with a bunch of old furniture, you know? I think you unfortunately bite the bullet and do it.
You know, we had this conversation last week that I think it's really important that we fill the empty space with tenants, right? That is the goal to offset our debt service. And I think that one of the things that I mentioned to Kyle last week was when I look at the marketing that we have for the building currently and what we are offering out, I don't feel like there's a comprehensive, clear plan. If somebody were walking here tomorrow and say, I want 2,000 square feet for 18 employees, when you walk in the door, I don't feel like there's this comprehensive, how does that work? And where's this flow? And I think we really need to dedicate time to figuring out what does this flex space look like in order to rent it. And I think to get there, you probably got to get down to an empty shell. And I was sick by the number. And that has nothing to do with our bidders at all. JDog has a fantastic reputation in the area as a veteran-owned organization and providing great services. Their reputation is stellar. So that my comments are not reflective of the service provided, but it's a lot of money. I had suggested to Kyle, I know this was a little funny, so what if we were to get volunteers to come in and help disassemble furniture? And I called the Rotary and I called other folks and said, would you give us manpower? And the answer was yes, but we don't feel qualified in unhooking the electric and the things that run in the channels and those pieces. Because I called around, I called the high school and said, can you get a student organization just because half of it is the moving of heavy stuff, right? And getting it out the door on there. So I made calls just to figure out how to get the cost down. And this is probably not the right thing to use that labor for, right? There's probably something in the future that you use the labor for. But at some point we have to get serious about getting the space rented and we got to get it cleaned up and ready.
Yeah.
And go ahead. No, you're not, but I'm going to let it go.
No.
Mhm.
That's been, so just as somebody that's been on some of those calls, the feedback has been that if we divide the space up for the idea of finding somebody with 200 employees to fill it is not realistic. Finding 10 employers with 15 employees is far more hopeful. And the way it's set up now is really set up as one big conducive space. By getting rid of the furniture and being able to say, okay, and we're not providing, typically when somebody rents at a commercial space, the landlord will do a fit out allowance and say, we'll do $50,000 of work for you to rent this space for us from 10 years. We're not providing any fit out allowance, right? We don't have the cash to do that. So what we're trying to do is get to an empty shell where people can come in and go, I'll take from here to here and I'll put my own little wall in and then you can have a common hallway. That's right. So we're trying to get to an empty shell and I'm sick by the number. Quite honestly, like I said, I called service organizations to find out like who would help us. And you just can't. So I just wanted to throw out there that the goal to get it rented and get money in the door is to get it at empty shell. So someone goes, I'll take from here to here and I'll take from here to here. And then you start getting it filled.
And to that point, I know one of the recommendations is the council at least consider removal of the furniture from the first floor leasing area too, as it's the most lease-ready space. But if we're going to be doing it again, we recognize the same need is going to exist 2 or 3 more times, then I would say we do it all at once.
Council, can I make
Yeah,
a suggestion?
absolutely.
Do we have the ability, and again, Sonny's been great to work with, looking at the first section, which is the lowest of the 3 amounts. Are we able to come in and almost use this as a litmus test and see it's on a second floor level, see how quickly, we'll keep accurate records and see how quickly we can remove this stuff? Obviously, in this bidding process, if we go over, I eat that. But if we come through and we remove it much faster, and typically with jobs like this, we become more efficient. And I would implore you to come by and see us work. We really work efficiently and quickly. But then we could revisit the other 2 portions of it. Is that something that could be potentially be done?
There's no objection to that. Mike, anything that?
No, we can make that work, and we have a form agreement we have already. We can kind of make that a phase 1 and phase 2, and if we bring the J-Dog, of course, put both those in place so that one goes first and award it. And then from that, once that's done, then you decide on this, pulling the trigger on this.
I'm fine with that.
Would it push the timeline down? We wanted it all done.
Timeline wise,
We'll get it done. Trust me.
Mike, can we also authorize, not to exceed, ideally with actuals less, just authorize Sonny or Kyle to, carry through with the other 2 phases if they see fit?
You could do that as well, yeah.
And this way it just keeps it going, because
I would rather, right.
That's how.
bringing the
that's how it
guys
would be.
back is a cost to them as well, and resetting up and, transportation.
With the reset up, sir, the first 2 sections are on the second floor. That's the biggest hurdle
Sure.
because of typically we have service elevators. The first floor, it would be a minimal setup.
Council good with that? So let's not put this on consent, but if we can have what the new agreement would look like.
I'll circulate both the
We'll take-
motion and the phase 1 and phase 2 agreements,
Perfect.
for Wednesday.
Okay. So we will have that as a non-consent item, but feel pretty comfortable that we're in a good place moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
All right. First reading of the notice for budget availability. Mike, you taking this or Kyle?
So under the Pennsylvania Borough Code, we have to make the budget available for the public review, at least more than 10 days before we adopt it. So this would just be the notice to put out that would be advertised in the paper as well as on our website. The budget itself is already on the website because I saw it earlier today. Both the overall presentation, including a line by line breakdown of everything. And of course, as council noted earlier, it's been presented at earlier meetings, public meetings, and gone through in detail. So this would be on your agenda for Wednesday, would be approving that first notice to go in the newspaper.
Anything from council? Move that to consent. First reading of the ordinance for the tax rate change.
The same thing,
thing.
but as part of implementing the budget, we need to do an ordinance. I would probably have us not put this on consent because one of the things that is open and out there, and I think we all expect will be decided tomorrow, will be whether the library tax referendum goes through or not. If it does go through, we'll need to fold that into the ordinance, and if it doesn't, we'll otherwise adjust.
Any discussion from council, even though there's going to be discussion on Wednesday night separately?
I have a question or maybe a recommendation in terms of the title. I guess I would recommend we strike fire and emergency medical services from the title, as this seems to reflect more the overall general budget for the borough, not specific to fire and EMS. If you want to add in another whereas, whereas the cost of services is $782,000 or something to that effect, to justify or explain the 1.15 mil increase, it might make more sense. In which case, if you wanted to, you could also, well, I guess you don't need a library tax. That's a separate issue. This is a general budget, not a fire and EMS.
That's correct. Yep.
Not it right.
Thanks. I'll make sure to do that, Bob.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. All right, and this will be non-consent item for Wednesday. All right, job description for the planning and zoning coordinator.
Sure. Thank you. Over the last 3 months here, we've had a few of our employees get hired away to other municipalities. We've contracted with a private firm that's worked with New Garden Township for years. For the last month, they've been working here, serving in those employee roles. So far, the service has been great. And the costs, we're seeing some cost savings there. So we'll see how that goes. This is a request to create a new job description that we intend to offer to a candidate who's been through a few interviews with us. The idea is that they would be the planning and zoning coordinator. So they would take in requests for zoning changes or attend planning commission meetings, and importantly, help us to think through our future plans for NVF and State Street. So the candidate we're looking at has a professional planning background. They have experience in GIS, which is a mapping technology. So I think that they'll give us some real horsepower behind those efforts. And planning to compensate them, to incentivize them to get their BCO as quickly as possible, so that they can expand what roles they're serving.
Questions, discussion from council?
I know we've struggled conceptually with having one person do both sides of this. Is that no longer a concern?
No, so what we've struggled with is having someone enforcing codes and providing planning and zoning input. So this person will be, if you think about it in terms of a game, right? One side of it is the umpire. The other person is the one coming up with the rules. And so it's always challenging to put that person in that dual space. So this person would be coming up with the rules. What should the rules of the road be for the borough? And helping to facilitate, zoning change discussions. We would still stick with the firm that we're working with now for code enforcement issues.
The analogy I was going to make was sort of similar, was going to be just like we have a chief of police and we have patrol officers. This would kind of be like the chief of police, but for the planning and zoning, where you have the third-party company that's the zoning officer and building code official that's down in the weeds, get everything done day to day. And this is someone who's giving you the bigger picture direction in terms of where you want to go.
And I think if we do get somebody with a planning background, that can be with moving a consistent vision through various councils as well. Anything else from council? All right. Any objection to moving that to consent? All right. Thank you, Kyle. Bills paid.
Reviewed by the finance committee, questions were answered. We'd recommend approving them.
Anything from council? All right. And then approval of council meeting minutes from many meetings past. I have no comments on them. Move that to consent, or Bob?
There's one edit I have to one, which I think is significant. Can I request? Sorry, guys. I just wanted to note on the minutes of October 2nd in edit. So do you want to do that now or take it off consent and do that Wednesday?
We can make the addition, we can make the edit.
Okay. what I'm suggesting is that under the YMCA update, something to the effect of Mr. Legier was asked, and I can give this to you, Kyle or Sonny. Mr. Legier was asked if he would share the annual profit and loss statement and capital investments made by the Y since they took over the pool from its inception to date. And Mr. Legier agreed to share this information.
Yeah, we can make that change and we can have that as a separate item. Anything else from council? All right, so we will pull October's from consent. All right, that is the end of the discussion items. Anything else from council tonight?
Can we answer Ms. Watson's question from earlier? I think it's a good one. Rob, I guess, and codes, when there's a question about whether that it's an enormous project, so it's not an easy project for them either, but that's their issue. Are we always aware when a road is closed, there's a road permit process they have to go through? Are we sure that they're doing that and piles of aggregate on the street for weeks at a time? I'm not accusing it. I'm just saying who's watching the shop and who's the guy or gal when there's an issue or question that Ms. Watson or anyone for that matter can ask to make sure that it's working correctly.
Hold on. Sorry, Rob. Can you use the mic? It won't show up on Zoom if not. Thank you.
Or use Chiefs. Yeah.
We need it. Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
Okay, the stone, they were supposed to backfill, so they were staging the stone on Washington. And the contractors didn't get the right equipment in there to do it. So it ended up staying there much longer than it was supposed to. I called them and asked them to remove it, and it was removed. Crossing State Street, right now they're running stormwater piping up State Street. It started on the other side mill and running up. They have to cross State Street. The problem with that is that they wanted to shut State Street down. And I told them they were not allowed to shut State Street down during the day. And that then they came back, and I spoke with Chief the whole time about this every time it came up. They also wanted to do some detours and send everybody through down Linden. Said, no, that's not going to work either, because we don't have trucks there's trucks that wouldn't be able to navigate Linden. So what it came down to was they had to work at night, and that because they have to cross the street for the project, and that trucks would be detoured on Route 1 and cars would be detoured down Linden.
Thank you. So are you the point person? If anyone has a question, is it you or our codes inspector?
Right now, it's me, and I discuss it with the police chief when anything comes up, and they have to give us a plan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Sure. Okay. Thanks, Ms. Watson. They will. They will.
The apartment.
Anything else from council? Nope. Yeah, just yell. Or Jack.
Come on over, Rob.
For the paving, I talked to them about that and they said that after the storm was done, that they would schedule for base paving. So they would mill it down, do a base paving and to flatten it out, which would be really nice. And that would run through the winter.
Thanks, Rob. Mr. Manager, anything from you?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. All right. Thank you all. Meeting adjourned.